A very good evening and welcome to Fight Night on talkSPORT. I'm Gareth Davies. Spencer Oliver is with me tonight as we discuss the pound-for-pound list in the wake of Terence Crawford's masterclass against Saul Canelo Alvarez in Las Vegas last weekend. No eggs, but plenty of stench from the Eubank Benn press conference in midweek. Spencer and I were there. The rematch at Spurs, of course, on November the 15th. And we look back on the amazing, the spectacular, and in the end, tragic life of Ricky Hatton. You're listening to Fight Night, and you're watching Fight Night on talkSPORT. Well, a very good evening, Spencer. It's our favourite 2.5, but 3 hours of the week, as the show normally is. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well. Looking forward to the show. Action-packed show we've got tonight. You know, we've got so much stacked into these couple of hours. Really looking forward to it.
I definitely can promise you a lot of intense knowledge and debate and discussion tonight, but a lot of emotion as well, because it's been, just to cover this off first of all, it's been an incredible week with some of the modern legends of the sport in action last weekend. Canelo Alvarez, Terence Crawford, Naoya Inoue in Japan, but also on the same weekend, the passing of Ricky Hatton, and we've been very affected by it all week. We still are, aren't we?
We really are. I mean, the highs and the lows that we had in that 24 hours was, I don't think I've ever experienced it before. You know, watching Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Crawford, the brilliance of Terence Crawford, and then hearing the tragic news of Ricky Hatton was, yeah, it was a crazy 24 hours.
Absolutely devastated. We all are still, and our condolences and thoughts are still with Ricky's grandchildren, his son, his daughters, his parents, his brother, all of these people who we know in the world that we inhabit. It's very, very sad. And I do hope there's an announcement soon that we're going to speak about Ricky in a couple of sections, but I do hope they close Deansgate or something like that, and we get to walk with the 50,000, with the Hatton hordes through Manchester one more time.
Absolutely. Listen, Ricky Hatton was a boxing legend. I think he was loved by all. You know, his whole story of coming from that kid, coming from that council estate, and to the heights that he reached, becoming that public figure. And I think that, you know, Manchester, they turned out in their droves when he boxed. They travelled in their droves when he boxed. And let's hope he gets a statue or something.
The airport named after him.
Something. He deserves something. He really does. He was a kid that fought with his heart on his sleeve, but a lovely human being.
And he will always be one of us, and we are with him. We're going to get into that at 11 o'clock, and Spencer and I are going to look back with a few highlights on 7 or 8 fights from his career, and just celebrate what a great, relentless, vicious little fighter he was. But first of all, let's turn to Eubank Jr. versus Benn. The press conference fallout this week. We were both there on Wednesday at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It's set up to be another great occasion on November the 15th. I'm sure it'll sell out again. It's the fight of the year in Britain, in my view, the April first coming, if you like. They're calling it unfinished business on November the 15th. And the night was dominated at Spurs at the press conference by the effectiveness, the showmanship, and the downright skullduggery, if you like, of Chris Eubank and his attacks on the boxing board of control, on Eddie Hearn, on his opponent. In fact, I'd like to say that Conor Benn got off lightly and wasn't called a drugs cheat this time, which didn't actually come up, did it? There was, I say, there were no eggs thrown, but there was plenty of stench in the room.
Yeah, there certainly was. I mean, Chris is that guy, isn't he? He's a master at what he does. He's a showman, he's a salesman, and that's exactly what he was doing there. I mean, he had so much else on his mind with talking about blaming the boxing board and the ambulances being stopped and Eddie Hearn and all the rest of it. It was, it was one of those. It was an unusual press conference because it was the first time the boxing fraternity had come together since the tragic loss of Ricky Hatton, and I think that it affected Conor Benn. We could see that it affected Conor Benn, who wore the Man City shirt to the press conference. He looked very emotional when he was at the press conference, and he talked about Ricky Hatton sort of
taking him under his wing when he first came here.
Absolutely,
training him,
coming over from Australia
when he was 15.
That's right,
exactly.
Teaming up with Ricky, and Ricky sort of like being a mentor to him. And I think that it definitely had an effect on Conor. So he was sort of like very reserved, and he wasn't really biting too much at Chris Eubank Jr. But Chris was going off on one, man.
Well, the fallout from it, because it was genuinely an evening of fallout, was that Chris Eubank Jr. faces a fresh legal battle with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom after accusing them of delaying his ambulance's exit from Tottenham Hotspur when he was in a gurney following his victory over Conor Benn in April. Let me quote him here. He said, "They did everything they could to try and destroy me in this last fight. Contract breaches, fines, rehydration clauses. They sabotaged the weigh-in. There was biased commentary." That was probably you. And refereeing. The list goes on. We weren't biased at all. We both had Eubank winning comfortably. I'm in the ambulance, and these scumbags, quoting Eubank again, blocked that ambulance from leaving the stadium for 20 minutes. We were locked in for 20 minutes. I'm lying there in a gurney with an oxygen mask on. The car cannot move because they won't open the gates to let us leave. Let me add to this. I'd like to get your reaction from Eddie Hearn. I've never seen him so incensed, if I'm honest. Mm-hmm. What was your reaction to Eddie Hearn? He was rattled, wasn't he?
He was rattled from when he walked in. I actually spoke to Eddie before the press conference went on, and Eddie said, look, I'm not going to get a word in. I know that. I know that Chris has come with a motive. He's not going to let me talk. Every time I talk, he's going to try and shut me down. That's what he done last time. But you know, it is what it is. I've got to be here. I am the promoter. But he did look rattled, actually, you know, and I think he was upset. He was upset with Chris Eubank's behaviour, the accusations that he was throwing at Matchroom, at Eddie Hearn personally, about the ambulance being stopped and all of that stuff as well. And there was that moment, wasn't there, when Eddie wanted to say something about Ricky Hatton.
At the very beginning.
At the very beginning. And Chris Eubank just shut him down. He wouldn't let him speak.
And he suffered all the negative news headlines the next morning for that, and thereafter in the evening, because he was seen to be being disrespectful to Ricky Hatton at the time, wasn't he?
He was. And I think he released a statement actually saying, I wasn't being disrespectful. I had a lot of time for Ricky Hatton as a fighter, as a person. You know, he was one of the greatest we've ever produced. He
qualified it. Yeah. But what he explained was he wasn't going to let Eddie Hearn speak, and it wasn't about. It wasn't. He almost wasn't listening to the content.
Yeah, no,
at the
that's
time.
right.
His plan was just to shut Eddie Hearn down. Maybe, and we've talked about this off air, Eddie was calculating on that as well. There might have been a counter game going on here as well.
Listen, Eddie's a smart guy, of course. Like, look, I think that Eddie just wanted to say his piece on Ricky Hatton as the fighter, but it was all sort of, look, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I don't think that Chris Eubank wanted Eddie to speak, and he felt that was Eddie's way of trying to shut him down, and he wasn't going to allow it. We heard that Eddie, and that's what he done in the last press conference before, and he kept doing it.
And Eddie acquiesced that time. He didn't this time.
Absolutely. He
didn't yield.
Eddie was very emotional, and he said, listen, it was disrespectful, distasteful, and he should have let me speak. So it's like, you take it as it is. Was it Eddie, you know, using that to speak? I don't think it was. I think he personally wanted to say his bit on Ricky Hatton, but I also, in defence of Eubank Jr., don't think that he was being distasteful or disrespectful to...
But it was disrespectful.
Yeah, exactly.
It came across
No, but I'm saying, but I don't think it
wasn't
intentionally.
deliberate. I agree with you.
That's what I'm saying.
I agree with you, but it did come across.
Yes.
But it wasn't just that. He went further. Obviously, he called the promoters scumbags at the last event in the build-up, and he issued an apology. As we understand, he was told to behind the scenes by HE, His Excellency, Turki Al-Sheikh, who was very unhappy with him critiquing and attacking the promoters. There was legal action threatened then, of course, by Frank Warren. It was a very aggressive press conference. In this one, there was a passive aggressiveness. We've got an interview with Chris Eubank coming up in the next section, very interestingly, with Rory Jennings and Adi Oladipo. It's kind of a lot of it around poker, but it just shows how Eubank thinks. Then there was an attack, to go into the detail on this, because it was a fascinating press conference. There was an attack on Robert Smith and the Boxing Board of Control. He paid $500,000 in fines, didn't make the weight. That was nothing to do with the Boxing Board of Control. It was in the contract. He missed it by a Cadbury's cream egg. He claims they sabotaged him coming to the weigh-in. Hearn and Matchroom claim that he turned up really late and left himself only 10 minutes to lose the weight. It's all drama anyway. And Robert Smith, I spoke to this week, was very unhappy with Eubank's comments. And this is what Robert Smith told us.
Obviously, I can't say too much about Chris Eubank, as we have taken legal advice. But it's disappointing that anybody would say that any member of the board or myself would do anything detrimental to a boxer's health. And to say that somebody deliberately stopped an ambulance from leaving a venue is quite unbelievable.
So that was Robert commenting on unhappy about the accusations of what the board may and might do with fines that they take. We know what they do. They put it into research, medical help, and as much as they can do. We've both known Robert a very long time, and he is very much a stand-up figure trying to oversee what we call the Wild West. And also, we've got one of the best safety records in the world. You know yourself that through cases like your own, through Michael Watson, the board went through terrible times, were sued themselves years ago, and they've come through, and there is always medical help on hand. It was chaotic leaving the arena that night, leaving the stadium. I can't imagine that anyone was deliberately stopping an ambulance from leaving, with Chris Eubank Jr. in it.
No, nor can I. I mean, I was parked not too far away from the stadium. It took me 2 hours to get out of there, just to move, 50 metres, if you like. So, look, the Boxing Board of Control are the most stringent board in the world, and I'm living proof that, they do listen, they do learn from the accident that happened to Michael Watson. Medical procedures improved, medical science improved, and they took that all on board, and that saved me, and that's why I'm sitting here today, because the Boxing Board acted. They sedated me in the ring, stopped any damage being done. I went and was operated on, 3-hour operation to the right side of my brain to stop a bleed, and that was down to the Boxing Board, acting the right way after the accident that happened to Michael Watson. So I can't knock the Boxing Board of Control. I think that they are there
in no way, shape or form will they ever try and hinder a boxer being saved if he's hurt in a fight.
Absolutely.
As he was chronically dehydrated. His health, I mean, they've talked about his health being in danger. Obviously it was because he went to hospital, but obviously we're very happy that Chris Eubank is fine. He won that first fight, by the way, 116, 112 against Conor Benn. We both had it that way, I think, or at least 7-5. It was such an interesting press conference. We may come to this later in the show. We haven't even talked about how we feel the second fight might go. If we've got time later on in the show, we will. But we've got time in the next, 7 weeks, 8 weeks before the fight takes place. But it will be a fascinating fight when it does take place. Coming up next, we'll listen to Rory Jennings and Adi Oladipo talking a bit of poker for about 10 minutes with Chris Eubank, and we'll digress and assess what he said. Oh, the trance anthems are out tonight as well. Thank you in the gallery for getting those going tonight. Always gets me buzzing, gets the Oliver buzzing, the Omen buzzing on a Saturday night as well. Now, earlier this week, Rory Jennings, our colleague Rory Jennings and our colleague Adi Oladipo caught up with Chris Eubank Jr. himself.
Well, I was with him yesterday on my birthday for the first time in 6 years. We had a great day. He doesn't want me to fight. I don't think he wants me to fight in general, not just this particular rematch. I think he thinks that at 36 years old, I should be moving on to different things in this stage of my life. But that is a father worrying about his son. And, you know, he doesn't see the things I'm doing on a day-to-day basis in the gym. You know, I'm still capable. I'm still hungry. I'm still loving dedicating my life to the sport. So retirement is not in my eye line right now. He will be at the fight for this fight. And I would imagine that he will be, I don't know, he was publicly against me fighting in the last fight. I don't see that happening again for this fight.
Chris, it's funny, you mentioned your age, 36, which I think still quite young, considering two guys we saw on the weekend, near a 38-year-old and a 35-year-old in Crawford and Canelo, go wall-to-wall, toe-to-toe for 12 rounds. And as that fight played out, you came to my mind because I was thinking, surely Chris is thinking about either a Canelo fight, which we all want in the UK. Your name has always been mentioned with Canelo for the last few years, or maybe even a Crawford fight now, because I think he should be at 168 and Crawford's the guy at 168. Is there any play there? Obviously, look, we're here talking about Conor Benn, but surely those two guys must be on your radar.
For sure. I mean, you know, these are the guys at the top of the tree. So after, you know, a big win against Conor again, you know, if the public, if the Saudis, if Turkey al-Sheikh would see it that I was able to face one of these men in 2026, absolutely. I would love the opportunity to get into the ring with either one of those men and test my skills, test my strengths against the best.
Bomac is back now. I love Bomac. I think we all love Bomac. I actually think your performance against Liam Smith the second time around with Bomac in the corner was maybe the best performance of your career. How important is it that Bomac is back? And is it disappointing that there's no longer Jonathan Banks there, who is, again, a top trainer?
Jonathan Banks, an amazing coach, an amazing trainer, amazing person. You know, it was just simply a fact of me and the team wanting a different approach to this fight the second time around. We don't want the fight going 12 rounds. So that means we have to, you know, the best chance of that is to employ a different strategy, have different tactics, have a different mindset on what it is we need to do with Conor Benn in that ring. That's why we brought Bomac in. Me and Bomac are 1-0 when it comes to rematches. We're about to make it 2-0.
Chris, on the build-up to the previous fight, you were fairly dismissive about the threat that Conor Benn were to pose to you. You seemed to think that it was almost a write-off and you were very confident as you entered the ring. Post-fight, you were quite complimentary about Conor Benn. I think you openly said that he surprised you. He had the fight and the wherewithal that perhaps shocked you a touch. Going into this fight, are you still as confident as you were in that first fight, or did anything that happened in the fight shock you?
I'm extremely confident. Nothing shocked me, but I was surprised, or I wasn't expecting that he would have the grit and the determination that he did. You know, I thought he would quit at the first sign of hardship, of things not going his way. And there was a lot of that in that fight for him. And he didn't give up, which so many fighters these days do. When they know they're not going to win, when they know they're hurt, when they know they're behind on the scorecards, they'll take a knee or they won't get up off the stool. He didn't do that. So in that respect, I give him his credit.
You've been there and done it, right? Various levels, world level, coming through, British level. Did you find anything out about yourself in those 12 rounds? Like, did you, once you've sort of regrouped and recovered and watching the fight back, did you kind of say, okay, I found out a bit more about me, or did you know you had that anyway?
No, I'm 36 years old. I've been doing this for 22 years. There's nothing that Benn can help me find out about myself that I didn't already know already. I've been in way harder fights. I've been in way harder situations in my life, and I know how to deal with them. I know what I do when I get into those spots. And you guys know too. You guys have seen me deal with the same types of hardships in similar fights over the years, where, you know, it's 12-round wars. You know, I am no stranger to that. I think the fight was more of a surprise for him. He was the one that found out new things about himself in that fight.
Chris, can I ask you what's different about the preparation for a rematch rather than fighting someone for the first time? Like, surely you know so much about each other already.
That's the difference. It's one of those things where, you know, you shared 12 rounds with somebody, and you have the data, you've downloaded it all, you know the strengths, you know the weaknesses, you know the you know the limits of the man in front of you. So you have to then use all that information in preparation for round 2 or round 13, if you will. My experience in the game, I think that will benefit me. The fact that I've been doing this for so much longer than him, I know how to capitalize on the things I see and experience on a fighter more than he will. So yeah, I'm looking forward to an even more impressive performance next time around on November 15th.
This might sound like a silly question, but it's coming from me having never ever played poker up until about a month ago. And I'd never ever got to a table and been so nervous in my life. Like my hands were shaking and sweating. What's more nervous for you, sitting at a poker table with some big dogs, the big sharks, or making that ring walk?
There's no you can't compare the two. One, your life is on the line. In the other, you have, you know, and in boxing, you got one shot. You got one shot. And if it goes wrong, you can never, you know, you have to live with that for the rest of your life. You know, poker, there's always opportunities to make your money back or to readjust. You can buy back in if you want, if you will. You can't buy back into a fight. Once it's over, it's over. But yeah, I think that one of the great things about boxing is that it taught me to control my emotions. It taught me discipline. It taught me how to have a poker face. So when I'm hurt in that ring, when I'm hurt in these spars, my opponent will never see it. They will never know that they caught me with a good body shot. They will never know that you know, I hit them with a shot and my knuckle is really sore and I don't want to throw that shot again. They won't know because of the poker face. And I transferred some of those skills over to the poker table. So when I got a huge hand, or I put in a huge bluff, the face stays the same. You will never know. You'll never know.
You will never know. Mr. Spencer Oliver, the apple has not fallen far from the tree with Eubank Sr. and Eubank Jr. This week we saw him passive and aggressive. We saw him feeling sorry for himself. We saw him play the victim, but he's also the beneficiary. He's a brilliant speaker. He's a great promoter. Who has the bigger ego, Senior or Junior?
That's a very tough question. A very tough question. I think that Junior is a great poker player, a poker face. You never know the emotions that are going on. He does carry that, and that does transcend into the boxing ring. But when it comes to being the bigger ego, I think it has to be the father.
Well, we'll take that up with Chris Eubank Sr. when we see him, no doubt, at some point in the build-up to the fight on November the 15th. He did a lot of prodding me in the chest, saying you should be going against this fight before turning up in April. No doubt he'll be prodding us both in the chest. Final word, 1 or 2 words. Looking forward to it?
Can't wait. I mean, if they deliver what they delivered last time, which I believe that they will, this one could even be better. We had a little bit of everything. I think that it goes down as one of the best British fights that I've seen in a British ring.
Well, we've got Ricky Hatton's career in the next segment. Please don't go away. We're going to celebrate 7 or 8 fights, outstanding fights and nights and occasions that we remember so well in the life of the one and only Ricky Hatton, MBE. But first, the news, sport and weather with the one and only Max Scott.
professional football. They didn't believe in it. They wanted to spread the values of sportsmanship, competition, and played for the love of the game. It also helped that most of the players were Oxbridge graduates who didn't need the money. But instead of entering the league and cup competitions, they played exhibition football and toured the world, bringing the beautiful game with them. And it was this which spread the game throughout the world and made it so popular. Most famously, in 1910, they travelled to Brazil. And the locals in Sao Paulo were so impressed, they started their own team under the same name. Yes, the same Corinthians who won the FIFA Club World Cup in 2021, one of the biggest football teams in Brazil. Now,
Nobody will ever beat me at junior welterweight. Nobody. I really believe that. Nobody will ever beat me at junior welterweight. But what sort of a champion would I be if I just stayed in my normal weight and didn't take the big challenges on? Bring them on. That's what Ricky Hatton's all about.
Ricky Hatton's dream has died. Manny Pacquiao has taken him out in 2 rounds. Zinchenko landed the left hook to the body and Hatton is down.
Very, very hard to describe it unless you've been there yourself. I think there is a little bit of a stigma, you know, around, you know, opening up. And it's for men and women, but I'd probably say more men.
A very emotional week, looking back on the life and the career of Richard John Hatton, 46 years of age when he left into his eternal second, if you like. We're going to spend the next 15, maybe 20, maybe even 25 minutes looking back over some of his great fights, Spencer Oliver and myself. We're going to start in 2005, even though up to that point he'd won the British title and then he won the WBA, the World Boxing Union title. It's not really around anymore, but defended it 15 times. There were some great fights. Ray Oliveira, Ben Tackey. He fought John Thaxton for the British title, Eamon McGee as well. There were really good fights where he learnt a lot about himself to fight through an early knockdown, fight through a bad cut over the left eye with John Thaxton. Great corner work by Mick Williamson that day. Loads of stuff that we remember. I was at his debut, Spence, in Widnes in 1997. He was an 18-year-old. Frank Warren said, "You've got to come and watch this kid." Kingsway Leisure Centre. And he was focused, he was handsome. He was the 10-stone king, the Mexican Mancunian, the hitman. And but we're going to go to 2005 first of all, winning his first considered world title. He beat Kostya Tszyu, the long-reigning IBF light welterweight champion, in Manchester. Kostya Tszyu retired on his stool after the 11th round. It was a huge upset, and the night Hatton became a star. The atmosphere in there that night was off the charts.
Yeah, it certainly was. I think that it was the crowning night for Ricky Hatton, and, you know, his most memorable night, I'm sure. Kostya Tszyu was a huge favourite going into that fight, a pound-for-pound star at the time. I picked Frank Bruno up on the way up there, actually, and me and Frank were talking about what a great little fighter Ricky Hatton was, but this opportunity may have come too soon against a formidable champion. And Hatton went in there, he got hurt early in the fight, and he bit down on his gum shield, and he kicked on, and he pushed it, and he broke Kostya's soul. He stole his heart that night, and it was a memorable victory. What a night. It went on at 2 a.m. there, I remember, to suit TV times, and you could imagine 20,000 Mancunians there, all behind Ricky Hatton, and what a night. What a memorable night that was. Best night of boxing I've ever been at.
Yeah, I think it's one of the great nights of British boxing in our lifetime, no question about it. And Ricky created that. Mickey Vann, the referee that night, he let Ricky run riot in the ring as well. From there, Ricky was a national sports star at that point. He had done what people thought was unthinkable, beating Kostya, the Siberian naturalised in Australia, arguably in the top 5 pound for pound, as I say. Some people argue was top 3. Brilliant matchmaking by Frank Warren. And then he went on to unify at light welterweight that year against Carlos Mauser, a very dangerous puncher, to add the WBA belt to his IBF crown, cementing himself as the world's best at 10 stone.
Yeah, he certainly did. Mauser was known as a good champion, then the WBA champion, and Ricky Hatton went out there. He took the fight to him, swishing those attacks to body and head, and he won that fight in the 9th round, a 9th round KO up in Sheffield. What another memorable night again. Ricky Hatton fight nights were formidable, phenomenal to be at. The atmosphere was absolutely electrifying, and when he beat Mauser, what a performance that was.
Yeah, and then ambitiously, and I think he was under Dennis Hobson now and not Frank Warren, he goes on a journey in America. He starts to conquer America. He fights Luis Calazzo up at 147 pounds, a very wizened, clever fighter, steps up to welterweight to fight for the WBA title. He survived a tough final round in a very close fight with Calazzo and won on points.
Yep, very tough night for him there, moving up to welterweight. You could see the size difference. Calazzo was a big fighter, and
look at his face afterwards as well.
Yeah, it was a tough night. He had to grit and push through in the Thomas Mack Centre. It was packed out there, and a load of Mancunians travelled over to support Ricky Hatton that night. But that will go down as one of his hardest nights. I think Calazzo was a very tricky southpaw, and Ricky was struggling to work him out. But he done what champions do, and he found a way.
So from the TD Garden in Boston, another big step when he goes to the Paris Casino, Paradise, Nevada, basically the Strip. Juan Urango, this was a great night for him, but then he beats Juan Urango, who was a little Mike Tyson type figure. He was a tough fight as well for him. But then he stepped up, and we're just seeing the pictures here. There's Jose Luis Castillo, who had a tremendous pair of fights with Floyd Mayweather. Some people thought he beat him. And Ricky Hatton stopped him with the perfect liver punch. And that night, Wayne Rooney in the Thomas and Mack Centre, I remember it well because we spoke to Wayne Rooney afterwards. Wayne Rooney carried one of the belts, and Liam and Noel Gallagher have since said they argued over who was going to carry the belt.
Yep.
The Oasis twins, if you like, the Leeds guys from Oasis were all there on his walkout, and it was an amazing night at the Thomas and Mack.
He dominated that fight against Luis Castillo, a fight that was meant to be much harder for Ricky Hatton on paper for sure. And the first fight Castillo had with Floyd Mayweather, I thought he actually won that fight. Yep. He out-hustled Mayweather. Mayweather beat him in the return in another close fight as well. But Ricky Hatton went out there, dominated from the opening bell, and that left hook, trademark left hook that he threw to the body, absolutely folded Castillo like a deck chair. He went over, he was screaming, he was never going to beat the count. What a
fourth
win
round.
That was.
Yeah, fourth round, it was all over.
Yeah, brilliant performance.
It was, and I just remember celebrating. That was one of the first nights where I think we all ended up at 9 Fine Irishmen at New York, and that was the beginning of the fans having a celebratory Guinness or two with Ricky, where he never had security. He had Paul Speak and maybe one bigger man looking after him, but he would be there in a sea of fans with everybody just celebrating and enjoying till the wee hours, just singing and chanting.
That's why everybody loved Ricky Hatton. Like the night going back to Kostya, you go, there's 20,000 Mancunians in there, and every single one of them had probably had a pint with Ricky Hatton or felt like they'd had a pint with him because he was the kid next door. That was what made him such an attraction. Not just that he was electrifying in the ring, but the guy was such a personality out of it, and he had time for every single person.
The big thing that happened after the Jose Luis Castillo fight, as Spencer was just explaining, there was this feeling, there was this relationship that people felt about Castillo and Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather was looking for more opponents. He was undefeated. I think Ricky was, undefeated in 43 after that. And it had gone quickly. He was 6 years into his career. He was in his prime. I think he was about 26, 27 at the time. And we're going to go to break right now. And when we come back, we're going to do the tail end of Ricky's career, when he really was a crossover star here, but maybe an even bigger star in the United States. Ricky Hatton coming up again next.
stay or should I go? If you say that you are mine, I'll be here till the
end of time. Okay, welcome back to Fight Night.
That is so you, that, isn't it?
Yeah. Welcome back to Fight Night on talkSPORT with me, Gareth Davies, and him, Spencer, the Omen Oliver. We are still in the midst of celebrating the life and the boxing career of Ricky Hatton. We are up to 2007, when finally he signs to fight Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather comes here on a media tour. He wears a Manchester United shirt at the press conference. Obviously, Ricky was the Blue Moon man, a dyed-in-the-wool Manchester City fan who'd been going and having his Bovril since he was 7 or 8. His dad played in the reserves, of course. There they are, look, nose to nose, Joe Cortez between them. In the actual fight. It was a spectacular week. I remember being told off by Colin Hart, the late, great Colin Hart, for backing and supporting that Ricky would win the fight and being caught up in it when I knew I voted with my heart, and I stopped doing that night because my head said Mayweather would win, but my heart said Ricky would win. He could pull it off. It was an incredible event. They drank the bars dry, the 25, 30, 35,000, whatever it was that travelled over. 30,000 that travelled over there. I think there might have even been more. I remember every jet that travelled to America for days after days after days was just full of boxing fans. I remember going over early, and it was just full of boxing fans.
British fans took over the weigh-in. You heard them chanting, "There's only one Ricky Hatton." Mayweather couldn't believe it himself.
He loved it.
Yeah, absolutely, he loved it. But I said he couldn't believe the support that this man had got Ricky Hatton. He went out there, and Joe Cortez, the referee, didn't do Hatton any favours in that fight, by the way. Every time they got close where Hatton was at his most dangerous, Cortez broke them up, and it was always going to be a tough night for Ricky Hatton before eventually getting knocked out in that 10th round. But again, what a performance he put up against the pound-for-pound #1 in the world and an all-time great in Floyd Mayweather.
Indeed, and Ricky was knocked out by a check hook in the ninth, wasn't it? 10th round. 10th round, but he put up a tremendous battle. I remember sitting with Ricky, I think it was 2018, 19, maybe 20, in his gym in Hyde, where we did a programme for DAZN. I filmed with him for the day, and that was the day I'd put the body bag on. He doubled me up with a left hook to the body as well, to much merriment. But we watched the whole Mayweather fight back, and he was so irked, and he was going, Joe Cortez again. And you know what? Mayweather got away. When we looked back on it, Mayweather got away with a lot of elbows and forearms that night as well. It was a rough fight.
It was a rough fight, but like I say, Cortez was heavily in favour of the American.
I completely agree with you.
And it was always going to be tough for Ricky because Ricky was good when he was inside, up close. Yeah. He would step round the side and that trademark left hook to the body, doubling up to the head. Yeah. He never got off with his shots because Cortez never allowed him to get off with
Ricky was fighting two men in there that
Absolutely.
night. But it was still a great occasion. You can see Carol, his mum, and Ray, his father, in there. Carol used to have a vodka in a little water bottle to calm her nerves ringside. They were great. The family came as a unit. Matthew was always there. The wives were there. BBC4 with the carpet stall that Carol used to run at Glossop Market, where she'd be, go on, Ray, cut the carpet over there, move that over there. And Ricky's a crap carpet fitter, you know. And as his dad always used to say, it's a good job he could box, because he was terrible at carpet fitting.
Absolutely.
They were just so much fun, and they were great characters in British life. He took the loss very badly.
This was the beginning of the problems, I believe, for Ricky Hatton. You know, that loss was very difficult. Going into that fight, was he 42-0, 43-0?
43.
Going into that one, and he'd been sort of like going through everyone, and this was the big chance for him. He'd boxed over in America on a number of occasions, built a big name and a big fan base over there for himself as well, but he was going to get the opportunity against Mayweather, and I think that he took that loss badly because of the refereeing in that one. You know, Cortez never allowed him to get off his shots, and he feels a little bit hard done by him. Probably felt he could have done better in that one. Whether he could have won or not
he always says that himself. He says that himself, that when I did that programme with him, it's out there on DAZN, so if you look it up, it's Ricky Hatton looking back on the Floyd Mayweather fight, and we went through every single round, and you know, the little lad from Hattersley, as he called himself, from the Hattersley Council estate, he does say, look at Joe doing that, but he also says, who knows?
Yeah.
You know, he knew and knows how great Floyd was.
I had that conversation with him myself on many occasions. He said, listen, Spence, this is what it is. Look, if I was given the opportunity and I was defeated, and I was defeated after giving it everything, then I would accept it. But it's always going to niggle at me. It's always going to be in the back of my mind. And that's why I say that was the sort of the beginning of the problems really for Ricky, because he feels that he was hard done by in that fight. And like he said he didn't know if he would have won the fight. He might have got beaten anyway, but let him have a go. Let him have his shot, and he feels hard done by.
So at this point, he's fought... This guy was the number one pound for pound at the time, in my view. He was recognised more and more over the coming years that Floyd Mayweather was the number one pound for pound of the era. Obviously, multiple weight world champion, undefeated in 50 fights in his career. But... 6 months later, I think it was 6 months later, and it's not in our list here, so we've got no footage of it, no pictures, but we go to Manchester City Stadium. He makes his comeback against Juan Lascano. He's a bit ropey in the fight, but he comes out, I think it was in the Fat Man suit that night, the Ricky Hatton. It was an extraordinary walkout through the blue moon out onto the stage. The atmosphere, 58,000 people there. It was a fairly new stadium at the time.
Yeah,
City Stadium. It was new. Oh, there he goes. There he is. There he is in the Fatton suit. He knew how to celebrate, to entertain a crowd. He knew how to deliver. He was also so self-effacing. He pushed himself back into... Look at him in the fat suit.
Yeah, but do you know what? He took a lot of stick for ballooning up between fights.
3-4 stone.
He didn't just put on a stone like most fighters would. It was, like you say, 3 and 4, and he would get really fat. And he sort of took it upon himself to come out in that big... fat man suit, if you like, and it was brilliant because he had Fatton written on the back of it, and it was just like, I thought that was genius, him doing that. He was saying, listen, this is what it is, and he went out there and he put on a great performance.
He did,
and got back to winning ways.
Paulie Malignaggi had his dreadlocks cut during that event when he was fighting. I think it was Love More Nadu on that card as well. He had his hair cut in the 5th round after the 4th or 5th round, but then Ricky went on to fight Malignaggi in his next fight back at the MGM in Las Vegas, dominating Malignaggi before the fight was stopped in the 11th. There he is, there's Malignaggi with no hair this time, and he's had some lovely things to say this week. We got 4 or 5 more minutes to finish off these last 3 fights that we're talking about. He was back. What we felt was towards his best in that fight. He looked good, he performed well, and he dominated Malignaggi. Look at this. Yeah. There was the Oasis boys again.
Yeah, but he got back to winning ways with that Collazo fight, and he needed that just for a bit of self-esteem, if you like, and he got there. And then he goes in against Malignaggi, who was a proven... tricky customer, a brilliant, he utilised the ring so well, used the space so well, and it was always going to be a tough night for Ricky, because Ricky, with fighters that didn't want to stand there and trade with him, he would find it difficult, but against Malignaggi, he pinned him down before stopping him in the 11th round. Brilliant performance. 2 more fights before we go to break. We'll go through the Manny Pacquiao fight next. Manny Pacquiao was one of the greats at the time. Ricky, I went out 4 weeks in advance for this, and I've been to camp with Manny Pacquiao in Los Angeles at the Wildcard Gym with Freddie Roach, and he looked unbelievable. I went to Vegas, and that was the first time I met Kugan Cassius of IFL TV, by the way. Mm-hmm. He was Ricky's security guy. Yes.
And he was with Paul Speak, his ever-present manager, who's absolutely broken at the moment, who we're both in touch with at the moment, who will release details on what's going to happen with Ricky over the next few days and weeks, and we'll keep everyone abreast of that if we are going to do a march for him. But the Manny Pacquiao fight, again, he was like a statue in that fight, if I can describe it like that. He got battered.
Yeah, but I think it's fair to say by the time he stepped into the ring with Manny Pacquiao, and I think that Ricky himself said this, he said, the cracks had appeared by then.
He'd overtrained, he'd stayed out there too long, because I ran into him 2 weeks before the fight.
I think a lot of the fight had sort of left him by this stage as well, though.
But he looked sullen, he didn't look happy, he didn't look like he'd had a great camp.
Fighters always get to the stage where they're the first ones to know that it's gone, but the last ones to admit it. And I think Ricky was at that stage of his career, and he's still wanting to test himself, but I think he knew then that the best Ricky Hatton days were behind him.
When he lost that fight, it's the first time, the only time, and some of the journalists moaned, but I didn't at the time. He didn't turn up for our next morning interview, and he always came and regaled us with stories, gave us wonderful copy. He did all his career, like when the iguana was crawling on the back of the sofa in the hat factory, a converted hat factory with Billy Graham, the heat of the hat factory, and a boiling office the size of this studio with a blooming iguana 2 foot long crawling past you all the time. It was really weird.
Right.
Everything was a story. Everything.
Do you know what? I come across a beautiful photo the other day going through all our Ricky Hatton stuff, as we all were, and I was in that hat factory, and I was there with Ricky Hatton, his brother Matthew, Glenn McCrory, and we had this photo, and Anthony Farnell was in the photo as well, and Ricky looked so young and so fresh, and it just brought all these memories back, as you've been doing as well, Gareth. We're going through all our stuff going, so we go way back to right to the beginning, right back to the ABAs with Ricky Hatton. So, you know, it was it's been an emotional time for sure.
He came back in 2012. That was 2009. He came back in 2012 against Vyacheslav Senchenko in Manchester. And despite losing by KO, body shot, I think it was, in the 9th round, the night was remembered for the incredible support he received, showing the bond he had with fans. And before we go to break, what I remember distinctly, sitting very closely with him in a packed gallery at the press conference afterwards, and I remember him saying one of the first things was, "I haven't got it anymore."
Yep. That's what I said. The first ones to know it, but the last ones to admit it. And I think that was the night. You know, he lost to Senchenko. Let's have it right. Let's have it right here. This guy would not have been fit to tie his bootlaces in his day. Senchenko, no disrespect to him, he went out there and got the job done, but it was a shell of the former Ricky Hatton that we all knew. And that night, thankfully, Ricky admitted it was over, because I didn't want to see him continue after that.
Ricky Hatton, R.I.P.
Yeah, because Crawford now is cashing in. You know, he's worked hard. This kid has grafted a 4-weight world champion, 3-weight undisputed world champion, and now he's getting what he deserves. He got, what, $10 million, I believe, for that fight. If they go into the rematch, you're going to
50.
50. You're gonna...
50 for Crawford.
Yeah.
150 for Canelo.
Well, if they go into the rematch, he's going to get 150 or whatever.
I think
plus.
he'll get 100.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think Canelo still gets another 100. Canelo, even though we talked about Mayweather years ago, and I want to make these comparisons in a minute, I will talk about the comparisons. Comparatively, in Mayweather's career, he got very close to earning $1 billion, mainly because of the Manny Pacquiao fight. And the Conor McGregor fight, in which he literally earned $500 million for those two fights. When you look at Canelo, I want to just quickly, because we'll go into it a bit later on, what does Canelo need to do differently? Because my obvious thing is throw punches in bunches.
Well, it's as simple as that. There's no rocket science to this, but it's whether he can still do that, because we've not seen that in recent times. So he needs to revert to what he used to do. And that was, a typical Mexican style, work the body so well, but throw punches in 3s and 4s and try and break the opponents down instead of trying to take them out with single shots. We said before the fight, Crawford, the reason I picked Crawford to win the fight before the fight was because of his lateral movement, the way he works the angles, boxes as well out of orthodox as he does southpaw, switches beautifully, effortlessly, and Canelo was never going to get away with just landing the single shots.
The thing is, I went for Crawford initially. I went for Canelo at the end, so hands up. But I thought Crawford could outbox him when I saw them together and saw they were the same size. Yeah. And he made the weight brilliantly. By the way, there wasn't there wasn't any fat on him. He went up brilliant. His body is extraordinary. Yes, the rematch potentially. Let's just compare, before we talk about the numbers of the fight, what's gone on Netflix, how powerful Netflix can now be in boxing, Dana White getting involved with Turki Al-Sheikh, the UFC coming into boxing, or TKO Holdings. Talk to me about Terence Crawford against Floyd Mayweather's record. Obviously, he never went up to super middleweight. He went to light middle at the time. Sugar Ray Leonard went up to middleweight. Who and how does Crawford compare with those two greats, Sugar Ray and Floyd?
Well, what Terence Crawford done there was put his name in the argument, because we're all going to have an opinion and, people are going to agree with me or disagree with me. But I said when Terence Crawford beat Errol Spence, when he was back down at welterweight, when he beat Errol Spence, I said that performance was so flawless, he would have beat any welterweight of any era.
But so was this at super middle.
And that's where I'm going. So I'm going now. He jumps up 2 weight divisions and beats a modern day great.
3, really?
Yeah.
3.
At 3, really. Yeah, but beats a modern day great in Canelo Alvarez,
He's
who hadn't
slowing
been but hadn't been beaten for over 7 years, and he sort of like dominated each division and fitted into the super middleweight division very, very well. The way he effortlessly beat him, dominated from the opening bell and made it look easy.
Him.
When a fighter's inside and he's just tapping away and then whipping in a shot, you go, he's in his comfort zone.
Yeah.
He's actually he's enjoying it.
He made it look easy, didn't he?
Made it look easy.
Yeah.
He has to go down as one of the greatest to ever do it.
All right.
Because what he's done.
Let me ask you the straight question then. 12 rounds with Floyd Mayweather, who wins? Crawford or Mayweather?
I'm going Crawford.
I'm going Mayweather just. But I think they have to have 2 fights.
How do you think Mayweather beats him?
Just by avoiding the punches and just outscoring him round by round.
Yeah, I see. I think Crawford is as good as Mayweather in a lot of departments, almost every department, but the difference with Crawford and Mayweather is that Crawford is a little bit more spiteful, puts the shots together, and I just think that he would have outworked Mayweather.
Mayweather live was spiteful when he wanted to
Mayweather
be. We don't give him enough credit for being tough and spiteful.
No, absolutely he was tough. When you look at some of those fights, that fight he had with Maidana,
he look on the rope. He was pinned on the ropes for 6 rounds.
But he showed the toughness there. So I'm not denying that. I'm not denying that he was a great.
He schooled him in the rematch.
I'm talking about a guy. We're talking about guys from different eras, but I think that we'll look back on this in 10 years' time, because we always look at the past fighters as the best fighters of of a.
Well, it's always the ones
all-time.
we've seen in our lifetime. I think I watched him live 20 times. I don't think I've seen... This is the first guy I've seen live, technically, undefeated in my time, watching boxing live, if you like, working on it, 35 years, where I've thought, this guy probably could be a match for Mayweather. He's the only one.
Well, let's jump. Let's fast forward now. You've gone Mayweather. I've gone Crawford.
Well, what about Sugar Ray Leonard? Going back to Sugar Ray Leonard as well, because he's got that blistering hand speed and toughness and footwork.
He has. Leonard would have been a tough one to beat. If I'm honest, Leonard would have been a tough one to beat. It's one of those fights. Again, it's a flip of a coin. It really is.
Who wins out of Mayweather and Sugar Ray, first of all?
Sugar Ray.
Yeah, Colin Hart, the late, great Colin Hart, watched them both and always says Sugar Ray, but he's biased because it's his era. It was his era.
This is the thing. You're comparing different eras, and people that are going to be...
You can say Crawford beats all of them, and you can not get away with it, but you can justify that.
Gareth, that's what I said at the beginning of this conversation. Is in the argument.
Yeah.
And I go, and people that are listening to this might be saying, now, I've just gone against Mayweather twice, and they'll go, well, you're a Mayweather hater. No, I'm not. I loved and appreciated everything he'd done. But when you're comparing certain fighters and what you like and what you don't like, I'm just tipping the other guy. And Crawford's the guy that I watch him and enjoy it.
Yeah, and you see those you close your eyes and you see those silhouettes moving, and you can see Crawford capable of beating anyone around his weight division. Maybe not all the way up to super middleweight. Like, I don't think he'd have beaten Roy Jones Jr. Let's not take it any further. No one beats Roy at super middle, in my view.
No, definitely not.
There we go. He was there, of course, last week.
He'd probably be listening to this, by the way, as well, and he'd kill me if I'd said any other.
He'd beat you up. Still beat you up. 41 million watched it on Netflix. Obviously, I was there in the arena. Quick take. 110 million watched Jake Paul and Mike Tyson for obvious reasons. 41 million is still a spectacular number. Loads of generations I know who watched it were very impressed with the show.
Yeah.
Obviously, you were cajoled to being stay at home with the family to watch it. How did you see it on Netflix? What did you think?
Listen, I thought they'd done a great job. You know,
undercard.
Listen, it was always going to be about the main event. The undercard wasn't the strongest.
Apart from Billy and Martinez, I thought it was dull.
That's what I'm saying. But it was always going to be that. You get that when you have these mega super fights, all the focus is on these two guys, and I don't think that you need a particularly strong undercard, if I'm totally honest. But I thought Netflix, you know, they showed that they get the audiences. 41 million is an incredible number. And if you look at, like, Jake Paul, if you compare it to Jake Paul, Mike Tyson is an icon. So people want to tune in.
He's one of the most famous people in the world.
Absolutely. People tune in and want to see those ring walks. And Jake Paul has his
50 to 70 million subscribers.
Absolutely, who's been doing stuff with Netflix anyway. So that was always going to get... We live in the world of entertainment, man, and that proof is in the pudding, but Netflix could be the way forward.
I'd like to coin that. We live in the world of entertainment, man. We do indeed, my friend. The last three, all three of the most watched fight cards in the last decade have been on Netflix. Obviously, the boxing landscape is changing for good. I think, you know, DAZN is obviously doing a big job. A lot of the linear television channels are being phased out now. I think Amazon and Netflix and these big streaming services want to get involved in the game, and I get why, because they've got huge subscriber bases, and we know what our sport is. It's theatre, it's drama, it brings a touch of everything. To talk about Netflix, just before we go to break, I've watched the entire series. Matchroom, The Greatest Showman, that's now on Netflix. Father-son duo Barry and Eddie Hearn in their bid to take their heavyweight sports promotion company to the next level in the documentary series. I've watched it all. I think some of the editing was a bit disjointed. Barry Hearn comes across as an incredible figure. What he's created is unbelievable. Eddie's a little bit played down. It's worth a watch. I know you haven't seen it yet, so I won't spoil any more for our viewers and listeners and yourself, Spencer. If you were to choose very quickly before we go to break, a new Netflix series in our circus, in our sphere, what would it be?
Well, I want to see that, to be fair, because
if you were to create another one.
Wow, you've caught me on the off there. If we create another one, I'll have to come back to you on that one.
Would it be the life of Terence Crawford, perhaps? Would it be Saul Canelo Alvarez in Mexico? Would it be Katie Taylor's life?
No, I think that it would have to be like...
Moses Itauma?
Yeah,
Would that be good to get the cameras around
That
him?
would be great if you want to get into the life of these fighters today. Terence Crawford has an incredible story, by the way, as well.
Yeah,
And that would
does.
be a fascinating watch. Any boxer, actually, at the top of their game has a fascinating story because of where they've come from, the journey in between that, the roller coaster that it is. And, like, you know, imagine looking back at, let's just say, like, going into the life of, like, sort of Mike Tyson and getting a different angle, because we've seen it before with Mike Tyson, but getting a different angle on that and going back and stuff like they're all fascinating watches. They really are. I mean, there's so much scope in boxing for Netflix, for something like Netflix.
Because of narrative and storytelling.
Absolutely.
I was about to say, and you wouldn't say it yourself, I think your life story would be incredible, and I will try and get Netflix to make. I could be the narrator. Next weekend, you're heading to Nigeria for a boxing match.
Yes.
I'm heading to. Is Anthony Joshua on that card or not?
No, Anthony
I'm just
Joshua's
kidding.
not on that card. He might be there, though.
No, but they're talking about him getting a card in Africa very soon. I'm heading to Singapore for Crypto Fight Nights. But next weekend, if you weren't heading to Nigeria, are you working the Friday night?
Friday and Saturday.
Oh, you're working
I'm
the
going
Friday.
Nigeria on Sunday.
Okay, so you'll be working 2 events at the York Hall with our next studio guests after the break. John Trethaway of TM14 Promotions. Sounds like a military organisation, that, doesn't it? And Mark Nielsen of Nielsen Promotions. They're joining us next.
Star Breakfast. Monday to Friday morning from 6.
Right, I'm ready for a drink.
A little bit of trance to get us into this next section. Welcome back to Fight Night on talkSPORT with me, Gareth Davies, and him, the monster that I've just created, because we're going to have a Netflix series about him, Spencer the Omen Oliver. We're joined in the studio now by John Trethaway of TM14 Promotions and Mark Nielsen of Nielsen Promotions, who are producing some of the most powerful small hall shows on earth. They're not small hall shows, they're boxing events. Sir, explain it first of all, Mr. Nielsen.
Well, John and I have both been promoters in our own right for a number of years. I think we've done pushing nearly 60 shows each, have we, John, between individually? And it all started working together when we was doing the Eddie versus the Frank 5v5 in Saudi. And I have been working with John. We sort of like shared a few boxes. He was on like your call on a Saturday night. I'd be on your call the following Saturday night. And I sort of reached out and said, John, why don't we do a 10v10, me and you?
Were you rivals before that?
We were
not
rivals.
Talking or not?
Friendly rivals.
Okay.
Friendly. Listen,
not like Warren and Hearn. Then.
No, not quite like that. We were friendly rivals, but we were all trying to outdo each other because we're winners.
Hey,
so
I love it.
And so I reached out to John and we said, let's do it together. What a great idea. We sat down together, our teams got together and we worked out all my boxers, all John's boxers, all the boxers we worked with. Let's see what a 10-fight card would look like. And it was just mouth-watering stuff. This card we put together, and we did it Indigo O2, 2,000.
I love that venue.
Great. And we had a couple of thousand people in there. Absolutely brilliant. Best show I've ever done.
Very intimate venue, isn't it?
Yeah, isn't it brilliant? I mean, the crowd are right on the edge of the ring, aren't they? Really good. And then we've just started working together ever since. And now we're putting on the best shows in London.
Well, I think that's how boxing's evolved now, isn't it? When you look at like you sort of like Matchroom Sport and Queensbury Boxing and the rivalry that they had and the dislike that they both had together.
Aren't they?
And then we had Riyadh Season, Turkey Al Sheikh come in, got them to join forces. Now we're getting the best boxing, the best. And you guys have done that. You've took note and fair play to both of you. And John, I'll bring you in on this one now. I'd say you've decided to team up and you're putting on these magnificent shows. And the one we got next week, we're both on the talkSPORT Boxing YouTube channel on the Friday night and Saturday night. You've shown me the cards. I'm commentating on those shows and I'm looking at them and going, you are not taking any, you're not holding back with any of your fighters here. You've got O's versus O's, unbeaten fighter versus unbeaten fighters, 4-0, 3-0, where they're normally protected at that stage. But you've sort of taken note from what's happening, at the top end of boxing.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having us on, by the way. It's always good to come and see you.
It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you. No, Mark's right. He's nailed it pretty much. When you're working with more people, as long as you can get on and you get to your end goal, we have a lot of disagreements over do we do that, do we not do that. Mark's got two fantastic guys that work for him, which is Kyle, his nephew, and Jared. I've got a guy called Ben that works for me. So instead of just doing it on your own, maybe with the odd one behind you, there's like 5 heads here. And quite often it might be that one of us has got a special talent more than someone else. Like we were talking about matching earlier. But Jared might phone me and recommend something, and I think, why have I missed that? Because it's just different opinions and ideas.
Many people who listen to this show on a Saturday night and they talk to Spencer and I or Adam Catterall and I all the time and say, we're not necessarily boxing fans, but we like the Saturday night show because it's a broader look at boxing. It's our magazine show of the week without Simon Jordan tub thumping the whole time and being a DJ, as Eddie Hearn calls him. I'm just trying to wind you up a little bit, Simon, for your next comment. The only thing you two guys are missing, in my view, is Turkey Al Sheikh turning up at one of your shows. Look at the grins on your faces right now.
The invite's there.
But you never know. But you never know because, and I'll throw this back at you, you are creating stars of the future in these events. You are the feeder leagues. You are... And you don't necessarily want to be, but these are the feeder leagues for the Ricky Hattons of the future.
Yep.
That's it. And, fighters are in it for one reason. They want to be world champions. And Mark and I want to be the best promoters out there in the business. Working together is great. But as we said, doing it, he's got a stable of fighters. I've got loads of fighters and gyms that I work with. So next week's cards that you mentioned, Spence, Saturdays in particular, there's 5, 6, 7 fights on there where they're just fantastic 50-50s.
Let me stress, because I want to hear, because you can watch these events next week live on the talkSPORT Boxing YouTube channel.
Yep, that's correct.
So both of you, pick a couple of fights, if you will, on what people should not miss and must tune in for next week.
Well, for me, it's the heavyweight fight on the Saturday. You've got Harvey Dykes from Brighton on 6-0 and Dorian Karasmu 5-0. We were looking at making that for a southern area, but the board won't sanction that for some reason. I can't really work out why.
So explain why you wanted that. To those listening tonight who don't know, why would you want that for a southern area title?
Because when you get to about half a dozen fights, then you qualify for a southern area. A southern area, and the way it works, you'll have a southern area, then an English, then a British, and then European. So this is the first title, first credible title the boxers.
Johnny Fisher loved it when he won it, didn't he?
Yeah,
It meant a lot to him, didn't it?
And I've got to tell you, it's worthy of that as well. Harvey Dykes has been down our gym sparring with Daniel Dubois, and he's putting
Been on the pads with you?
a good account of himself.
Been on the pads with you?
Not been on the pads with me, but I've been watching the sparring. Incredible. And Krasmu as well is a brilliant fighter. That is a great fight to kick the night.
You in the WhatsApp group?
What one?
With Harvey?
I thought he was talking about Anthony Joshua. No, sorry.
No, just checking.
No.
So we got the heavyweight
But Dubois was a southern area as well. So there's a great pedigree for that. So, you know, 2 undefeated heavyweights. And for both of those, it's a big opportunity for them because they win against an undefeated fighter the next fight. You know, they'll southern area, English eliminator, and they'll be looking, the heavyweight scene is just so exciting at the moment, they'll be looking to break through in that.
It's on the YouTube channel, talkSPORT Boxing YouTube channel. If people are with their loved one or with their mates and they're out partying Friday night or Saturday night, can they come? Can they get tickets on the door? Where is it? Tell us all about it.
Yes, it's at York Hall, which is the home of boxing, as we know. It's pretty much a sellout.
A spiritual home.
Spiritual home.
It is.
But we'll always find a few more tickets to sell if people want to come along. It's a great card, as we mentioned. Mark's mentioned that fight. I probably would have said that first, to be fair, because you got Harvey, like you mentioned, he's trained by Don Charles now as well. He's a slick southpaw. Dorian is a tough come forward. I think Dorian's 5-0 with 3 knockouts. What you see, what you get on the tin. So styles make fights. But then you've also got there's loads. But Arnie Dawson against Marley Mason.
Arnie Dawson's a great little fighter. Marley Mason's game, as you like, as well. That is the absolute barn burner. That.
I mean, Arnie Dawson, we were talking about that earlier. 7-0, and he's just, you look at him. Innocent, young, babyface assassin, we call it. He gets a bit mithril when you mention that. But, you know, was he 7-0? You were telling me about his records. You know,
Spence knows him brilliant. So we took him out to, he's 7-0. I think he's got 4 knockouts. But we took him out to Texas, 3 fights back. He stopped the fella out there.
Flattened him.
And got the fight of the night. Then he's come back over here in the rematch.